Welcome. This is a Human Error News Network special report. We're opening the case file on something we're all familiar with, human error. We're going to investigate everything from the deliberate stroke of a scholar's pen centuries ago all the way to the accidental tap of a trader's finger today. And we're going to see the enormous and often totally unforeseen impact of these seemingly tiny mistakes. So, can a single typo really erase a fortune or even rewrite history? The answer, you'll see, is a huge yes. We're about to dive into just how these small slips can set off massive consequences, both in the ancient world and, right here in our super connected present. And as we go through these stories, a really critical choice is going to pop up. When things go wrong, is our first instinct to blame the person, or do we try to actually learn from the failure? You see, the whole nature of making a mistake has completely changed. What used to spread slowly, maybe taking years to ripple through hand-copied manuscripts, is now instantaneous. Today, a single mistake can have a global and often financially catastrophic reach in just a matter of seconds. Okay, so to really understand human error, we first need to look at its two main forms. You've got the intentional statement that's kind of disguised as a mistake, and then you have the purely accidental and often totally ruinous catastrophe. So let's rewind the clock a bit. We're going to do a little historical deep dive to see how mistakes were made back when the pen was definitely mightier than the keyboard. And we'll start with an error that was, completely on purpose. So this wasn't really a mistake at all, was it? This was a deliberate act by a Korean scholar named Park Pyong-yoon. When the new king Sejong confronted him, he admitted he'd intentionally left out two strokes from the character for subject. Those missing strokes were a quiet but powerful protest, his way of saying he would not serve two kings. It was an act of defiance that in the end cost him his life. But of course, not every historical error was some grand act of defiance. Nope. More often, it was just the simple, unintentional slip of a tired scribe's hand. This kind of error was so common, it even got its own Latin name, lapsis kalami. This was the everyday accidental screw-up of the pre-digital world. These simple little transcription errors have had a huge influence on art and religion for centuries. Think about it. Michelangelo's iconic statue of Moses, the one with horns, that powerful image comes from a single Hebrew word being misinterpreted. Same thing with that famous biblical phrase about a camel passing through the eye of a needle. Yeah, that might have originally been about a rope, not a camel. All right, let's jump from the slow, deliberate pace of the past right into the high-speed, high-stakes world of today. The lapsus kalami has evolved, and believe me, its consequences have been magnified exponentially. So, to put it simply, the slip of the pen is now the fat finger error. It's really the same fundamental human mistake, but now its impact is supercharged by technology. Now, look at this number. That's the staggering loss that Mizuho Securities in Japan suffered back in 2005. So here's what happened. An employee was supposed to sell one single share for 610,000 yen. Instead, they typed in an order to sell 610,000 shares for just 1 yen each. The mistake was caught, but not before 16 minutes had passed, and a fortune had literally vanished. And if you want to understand the truly mind-boggling scale these errors can reach, just look at this. The crypto exchange Bithum wanted to award a prize in Korean won, but they accidentally wrote the amount in Bitcoin. The results? A deposit worth over 60 trillion won was sent to one very, very surprised customer. And these are not just a few freak accidents. This stuff happens all the time, across huge industries, from airlines to cloud computing. A typo on a flight price, a single line of deleted code, a decimal point in the wrong place for a stock trade, every one of them was triggered by a simple human error, and every one had devastating speed and impact. So after seeing all this damage, you gotta ask, right? Who or what is really to blame here? And as we move forward, what does the future even hold for human error? Can we ever design systems that are completely immune to it? Historically, it was just easier to blame some outside force. Medieval scribes actually invented a demon. They called him Titavilus, and the story was that he went around collecting all their misspelled words in a sack to be used against them on Judgment Day. It was a clever way to externalize the mistake, blame the demon rather than try to learn from the process. Today, we've moved past blaming demons. We know the real causes are deeply human, things like fatigue, a lack of focus, simple carelessness. But here's the crazy paradox. Even though our understanding has grown, the potential for damage from one single click is far, far greater than anything that demon could have ever dreamed of. And this is where we have to make a choice. We can either blame the human, or we can learn from the failure. You cannot do both. And this leaves us with the ultimate question for our future, which is getting more and more automated. As we build these incredibly sophisticated AI systems that are designed to prevent these very human mistakes, are we actually eliminating error? Or are we just creating the potential for new, more complex, and maybe even more catastrophic errors that we can't even imagine yet? That's the real challenge ahead.